Hey there guys, we just wanted to show you a little project that me and Jordan have been working on. Jordan managed to find an Invincible box of official Heroclix figures. It was like the 7th or 8th set that they ever released, or something like that.
Old ass set.
We both really like the Invincible TV show. It's a very fun show, and we're a little late to the Invincible hype train, admittedly. Hopefully we're getting season 2 soon.
Yeah.
But also, these are super cool, and so they are old, so they suck ass. So we wanted to...
Very, very bad pieces.
Yeah, so we wanted to make legacy cards for them because we thought that'd be a fun little project, some little game design on our own end. I like doing that shit, and some updating some old figures that are kind of dog shit unplayable into being an attempt at playable. We didn't want to make these characters super overpowered because we wanted you at home to be able to use the link in the description with the PDF to print out the legacy cards that we made for these characters and maybe run them at your local event or with friends. So the goal is to not make your friends hate you, but hopefully they are going to be playable. Definitely more so than they are currently.
We've already gotten permission to play these at our local event. I have not as of recording.
But we will have gameplay with these figures probably in the next few weeks, just because our timeline, how things have lined up on our end. But we have not modified the dials for any of them, with an exception of Adam Eve. We gave her a stop click on her last click, but everybody else, their dials are just how you play them. So you don't really need to reference like switching between dials or like keeping track of their health on the legacy card. We just basically gave them all traits.
Yeah, and we're gonna get into those. We gave them all rally dice to balance them out, give them some cool abilities, and bring them up a little bit stronger. They rally all on 3s, as Invincible was first released in 2003.
That was as far as our thought process went. Also, it doesn't conflict with anything else. Fantastic Four have 4s, X-Men have 5s, certain characters have 1s. There hasn't really been a bunch of rally 3s. The only one we can think of is Yondu from, I believe, War of the Realm.
Yeah.
Rallies on all 3s, and all of these characters rally on all 3s as well.
Without further ado, we're gonna get into it. We'll start with the namesake box because he is... So these are the figures out of the box. They come with the 7 figures, the Guardians of the Globe team ability card, and a William Clockwell bystander token. The Guardian of the Globe team ability is kind of cool. There isn't one that's like it. It says whenever a member of this team rolls doubles on the dice on a successful attack roll, the target is not knocked back. The attack deals damage normally. If the target has 0 or 1 action tokens after the attack has been resolved, give the target an action token. So they all end cap on doubles, which is kind of cool. So you're locking them down.
This is a copyable team ability, so if you're running these characters on a constructed team with a team player, you can copy this team ability. There is technically like a shortened version of this with less wordy, but it's basically the same thing. Yep. If you roll doubles and you hit with your attack, instead of knocking back, you give them an action token.
Dave's gonna take Invincible, Mr. Mark.
Starting with Invincible here, we have the keywords for him as Celebrity, Guardians of the Globe, Coalition of Planets, Teen, and Viltrumite. Some of these are on his original sculpt, but a few of these we came up with for our own. He has, for his first trait, rally on all 3s. He has a traded sidestep hidden in that rally, so don't forget about that. He does have traded sidestep his entire dial. If interacting with those rally dice as a free action, he can remove a rally dice from Invincible so he can use hypersonic speed as free. This is a very powerful ability, we are aware. And if Invincible has a rally die on his card, you modify his attack and defense by +1. So this sets our first precedent for all of the rally dice for this set. They all rally on all 3s. They all, with the exception of Omni-Man, have a traded ability hidden in their rally. They can all remove their rally die to do an action as free. And if they have a rally die on them, they all modify their attack and defense by +1. This is just standard across all of them. The exact trait and the exact ability from removing the rally die changes, and then a couple of their other traits as well change, but that is their rally die. His second trait here, Viltrumite Heritage. Invincible may reduce penetrating damage, which I think is very funny because he has Invulnerable all across most of his dial, so this actually makes it invincible, which I was very proud of. And when Invincible would be KO'd for the first time in a game, instead turn him to Clix 6, roll a d6, heal Invincible equal to half the result, then modify Invincible's combat values except for range by +1 for the remainder of the game, protected pulse wave. This is to resemble him whenever he gets beat up in the show. He kind of gets angry, mad, and does an explosion burst of power. This is kind of to represent that. Also, Viltrumites are hard to kill, so this makes him a little bit harder to kill for his stats. His last trait here is I am Invincible. He has leadership, but he succeeds on a 4 through 6, and Quake, Giant Reach 2 traded. So keep in mind that he has sidestep, Leadership, Quake, and Giant Reach 2 traded throughout his entire dial. He can remove the rally die to Hypersonic as free. And while he has a rally die still on his card, his attack and defense go up by +1. So going over the actual powers on their card, we wanted to add a little bit of flavor to the powers on their normal standard powers. These characters don't normally come with cards. They were pre-card before Heroclix ever did cards, but we find a little extra flavor text basically on their power names to be some fun. So for Invincible here, for his hypersonic speed, we went with I Said No, which is one of his, I think his first scene in the show where he does his I'm very mad and I'm going to be invincible now and everybody stay the fuck away from me. And then his charge is Stay Away From My Planet, which is when he's fighting our boy Alan the Alien. His super strength is It's About Time, which is when he first unlocks his power and throws the Burger Mart trash can all the way to England. His invulnerability is I Am Invincible, because with his passive trait, the ability there to reduce penetrating, his invulnerability does become invincible, which I like my puns, so there's a few of those in here. And his toughness is Not Quite Invincible, because it's not quite invincible, it's one less. And the combat reflexes is one of the most heartbreaking lines from the show when Mark is getting his shit kicked in by Omni-Man. The line is, I'd have you, Dad, in response to Omni-Man saying, what would you have left? And then his close combat expert is just superhero training. Listen, they can't all be bangers, okay? So actually looking at his dial here, we see that he starts with hypersonic and has super strength for his first 3 and invulnerable for his first 3. He then has Quake for his second, third, and fourth click. On that fourth click, he also has toughness and close combat expert. Now, these first 3 clicks of life, basically, his click 1, 2, 3, and 4, are like his actually playable clicks, I'm not gonna lie. Which is why when he does his revive thing, he does not go to his last living click, he goes to click 6. And then he heals the 3. So he's going to have a couple extra clicks of life on him to justify his 100 points. His stats are not amazing, even with the +1 attack and +1 defense. He's an 11 attack and an 18 defense on the top, and immediately drops that defense number and very quickly drops that attack number. This is also affected by the rule of 3, as everything in the game is. So when he's in his close combat expert clicks, the +1 to attack from his rally die and from his close combat expert means he only has 1 more to go from there. So he's still only hitting at a 12 or an 11 on his attacks there. But since he's 100 points and he is the mainstay of the show and of the comics, we decided to give him the extra life as well as a decent amount of traits.
Next up, we've got Adam Eve. We gave her no new keywords. Guardians of the Globe teen. She doesn't really have much. Green Lantern keyword would be great, but she's not. So again, we have the rally on all 3s, all attack rolls. She has traded Force Blast and Perplex. She has a lot of powers that kind of just get overviewed during the show, where she'll just do like a one-off thing and it'll kind of go away. But we wanted to make sure that all of her stuff was available. And then she has free to remove her rally dice to use barrier or telekinesis as free. And then if she has a rally die, she gets her +1 attack and defense. We did choose to go with all of this on all of the pieces. They all get +1 attack and defense because their stats are so low that this makes them, I don't know, have a fighting chance. Her next ability is Protected Force Fields. She has Energy Shield Deflection, and adjacent friendly characters and friendly characters adjacent to any blocking terrain placed by Adam Eve can use Energy Shield Deflection. So that's her putting up her barriers and then giving the bonuses to her allies. It's like she did during the fight against the Flaxens. And then her final added ability we have is a stop click on her last defensive click. In the comics, Adam Eve has the ability to revive herself. She doesn't have that power yet available in the show, that she hasn't been killed, but she does talk about how she can do anything on a molecular level. So this is like her stopping herself, preventing herself from dying, so you can't just one-shot her. When the click is first revealed, give Adam Eve and a friendly character named Invincible a rally die. So she gets knocked down, you put the die on Invincible and her, get that extra in there. Hopefully Invincible's close to his top click so he doesn't die. And then we named all of your abilities off of stuff from the show, quotes and everything. So we did all of that. We've got Energy Explosion, It's Time to Go. Her energy contracts are her Penetrating Psychic Blast. She does this really cool scene where she makes an energy javelin and just chucks it through a Flaxen's chest. And then Suffocation Sphere, same thing in the Flaxen battles. She's just puts bubbles of energy around them. That is her Incapacitate. Her Barrier is this really good line. We give people the time to escape. When they come in and they're fighting the Flaxens for the first time, Rex is like, hey, we're gonna lose. And Eve's like, all we have to do is give these people time to escape. And then Range Combat Expert, best of the best. that line is said by Robot when she is doing the fight out to become part of the Guardians of the Globe. Arguably, she is the strongest hero shown in the show, aside from Omni-Man. Well, she knows how to use her powers more than Invincible does, so I think that she is arguably stronger than anybody else in the show other than Omni-Man. So that if we want to take a look at her dial right here, so she's got 9 movement on her top dial. She's got the energy explosion with a 9 attack, and she's got her barrier at a 16 defense and range combat expert. So she's got a 10-3 on range attacks, really strong. She has very similar first 2 clicks, second one having that incapacitate. So she's gonna just be kind of a tie-up piece to support Invincible. You're probably playing them together, hopefully. Her first 4 clicks are really where she wants to be, just like Invincible. After you get her down, she's not the best. She goes to an 8. With a rally dice, she's a 9, so she can still make hits. I mean, you roll dice, you can hit high, right? And then on her last click, where she has that stop click, she has Penetrating Psychic Blast and Range Combat Expert. So if she has a rally die at this point and her Range Combat Expert, she's an 11-3, which is a very good number, and she's gonna turn into her offensive piece. She's not the strongest piece as part of our team, but I mean, it's 65 points.
Next up, we've got Robot, Mr. Rex. This is him in his robot form, though we did take some lines from when he's in his human form, as well as some inspiration on the dial we can definitely see from the human form. So for his keywords, we've got Guardians of the Globe, Robot, Ruler, Scientist, and Teen. Some very meaningful keywords there in Robot, Ruler, and Scientist, though Guardians of the Globe and Teen can always use some work. For his rally, we've got the rally on all 3s and Mastermind. You can remove a rally die from Robot and roll a d6. You generate Robot drone tokens equal to half the result, max 4 drone tokens on the board at a time. So this is where his Mastermind comes in. You can generate Robot drones that can then stay next to Robot. Since he can fly, he can always carry at least 1 around with him and always Mastermind to that token. Also, when he has a rally die on his card, he modifies his attack and defense by +1. Next up, we've got the improved armor array. At the beginning of your turn, you may choose a standard attack power. Robot can use the chosen power until your next turn. This is to mock up his kind of in-combat adaptability to be able to adapt to any situation in front of him. And if Robot removed a rally die since your last turn, lines of fire to him from non-adjacent opposing characters are blocked. So he is definitely hard to hit. This is one thing that we're definitely keeping an eye on with this piece. We reserve all rights to make revisions later on these figures, but he has Mastermind and he can't be shot from range basically, as long as he's removing rally dice. So he wants to always be hitting those 3s and always be making those drones. Keep in mind that if you are running this team all together, anytime your opponent rolls a single 3 in their die roll, you get to put 1 rally die on one of your characters. Now, if they roll 2 3s, you get to put 2 rally dice wherever you want. But if you're running all of these characters together, they will compete for rally dice. And Robot is honestly, in my opinion, one of the better ones to get them for a defensive maneuver. He is kind of a defensive support piece for the team. And his last trait here is Team Unite. He has leadership, and as a free action, he can choose a standard damage power. Robot may use the chosen power until the start of your next turn. We all know how powerful damage powers are with Perplex and Probability Control and Outwit, as well as Enhancement, Empower, any other range combat expert or close combat experts. There's a lot of good utility in your damage powers. So Robot is a 75-point semi-tank, semi-utility piece, and his Robot tokens have Plasticity, Toughness, and Empower. So you definitely want to keep one of these next to Robot, so when they engage him in melee, he can crack back by giving himself Close Combat Expert and then picking up Empower from his Robot drone and trying to deal some damage out that way, as well as the +1 attack from his rally dice and the +1 defense hopefully keeps him alive at least a little bit longer than this dial normally does. He is a 2x1 base, as we can see here, the little peanut base, so even though he cannot be shot from range as easily when he's removing rally dice and making more Robot drones, it is still easier for your opponent to actually get into melee on him because there's just more squares that he's adjacent to because of the peanut base. There's just more options for your opponents to surround him and try to get on him. For the flavor text functionally on his abilities, for the running shot, we've got Lasers Online. For Earthbound Neutralized, we took this as Robot being in human form when he's this little demon cradle baby. And so for that, we went with the line, "The air is toxic to me." His toughness is just Robot armor. His energy shield deflections are, my fastenings are all magnetic interlocks. He doesn't use screws, you stupid Rex. And combat reflexes is, I escaped my prison. For Perplex, we have one of the greatest Robot lines, I think, in the entire show. His Perplex, Outwit, and Range Combat Expert are all technically one line, but we broke them up. So his Perplex is 2.5 seconds from now. The Outwit is 3 enemy tanks will align, and Range Combat Expert is 3 degrees to your right. I thought this was one of the most fun lines in the show, but it's a long line, so we had to break it up between all 3 of his abilities. But you will notice that this means that he has Perplex and Outwit throughout parts of his dial, and he can always choose an additional damage power. Robot is a very, very good, hard to kill, semi-tanky support piece, which is why we felt like 75 points for support piece is generally not where you want to be with your support pieces, but because he does so much, we felt justified in the 75 point cost for that. He only has running shot on his top dial, and then he loses all forms of moving and attacking, so he does not have a whole lot of offensive pressure outside of that first top dial click. So keep that in mind when you are running this character. He's hungry for those rally 3s. He's got a lot going on the utility end, but he's a lot of points, and he doesn't put out a whole lot of damage unless your opponents come to him first, in which case, honestly, he's probably dying.
Next up, we got the boy, Seth Rogen, Alan the Alien. All of his scenes in the 2 episodes he's in are really great. We gave him the Cosmic Police, Politician, and Warrior. Politician's from the comics, he fits on a couple more teams. But he is Cosmic, he is a cop, and he's a badass fucking fighter. He's got his Rally 3s, which is traded hypersonic in there. And you remove a rally die from Alan, and he can use Flurry as free, but hit targets are dealt a maximum of 1 damage. If Alan has rally die on his card, he modifies attack and defense by +1. We gave him this because he's supposed to be doing the planetary test on Urath to make sure that they're safe from planetary invasion. So it'll come in later with something on his card, and I'll go over that. His next trait is Envoy for the Coalition of Planets. He's got leadership and super senses. Alan is a leader. It hasn't come up in the show yet. It's from the comics. He also proved himself in combat against Mark with his witty comebacks and realizing what Mark was trying to do when he was fighting. So he does clearly have that super senses, that ability to avoid and think fast. He has his third trait, Reactive Adaptation. We gave him Invulnerable. He's fought Omni-Man and survived. He fought Mark and survived. He's clearly very tough. And then for the first time each game, that Alan the Alien heals from regeneration. Modify his combat values except range by +1 for the rest of the game. On his last 2 clicks, he has regeneration. So we gave him this because his species is a very fast healing one. And then for his fun names, we have here for the evaluation of Urath, which is plasticity. For incapacitate, we did Your Moon is That Way, which is a funny line. But this is why the rally dice ability makes his damage 1, because you should be incapacitating with him. Flurry, throw 2 tokens on him, tie him up, because he's not trying to hurt Mark in that fight. He's just trying to make sure that it's protectable. His combat reflexes is training from the Coalition. He's a cop. He had his training. Willpower is I'm an evaluation officer. Regeneration, this one was clever on David's part, because I'm using my timeout, which he does, and they go sit and have a talk on the moon, which is a time to him catch his breath and then have a decent conversation. Close combat expert is didn't you try that already? When Mark tries to throw him into the moon, but the second time he actually throws him into the moon. And then his exploit weakness is you are quite vincible. If you look at his dial, he's got a 10 movement, 11 in cap attack, 17 combat reflexes, so he's going to a 19 close combat, and then he has close combat expert. So he lacks that move and attack, and I think he really needed it just to bring him up a little bit better. He loses in cap after the second click and goes to no attack powers, has that close combat expert the entire time, and he at least does some decent damage if he has a rally dice on him. For 65 points, he's a good tie-up piece. He's not supposed to be killing your opponent's pieces. He's supposed to be tying them up while one of your other guys does the big hitting, but when he needs to, he can come in and he can smash. And I think that we got him to a good place.
Next up, we've got the man, the myth, the legend, Omni-Man. For his keywords, we went with Guardian of the Globe, Ruler, Soldier, and Viltrumite. Ruler and Soldier have some very useful teams that he can go on for those generic abilities. For his rally, like I said earlier, this is the only one that does not have a traded ability hidden in his rally die. It's just all of his rally 3s. That's because, honestly, Omni-Man doesn't need it. This was one of the only characters who, actually looking at his number and his dial, if you just drop his points by a little bit and give him a little extra touch-ups, he's a modern character. So that's kind of what we did with this. We didn't feel like we needed the extra power hidden in that rally die in order to bring him up to playability like the rest of the cast. But to remove that rally die, Omni-Man can make a close attack. So he just keeps smashing. He's fast. He's always making attacks. In that opening fight in episode 1, the one that shocked the world, he doesn't stop for a minute. He is all on the game plan, all business the entire, again, with the rally die, if he has it on his card, modify his attack and defense by +1 each. Now, keep in mind that if you're removing the rally die to make a close attack with Omni-Man, then he does lose that attack bonus if that was the only rally die on his card when he actually is starting to make the attack. Removing the rally die is part of the cost to make the close attack, so he does not gain that bonus to the attack during that attack that he's making from removing the thing. After that rally trait, Omni-Man is one of the few characters on here who only has 2 traits, including his rally die. With this one, we've got Pure-Blooded Viltrumite. He has willpower, but he succeeds on a 4 through 6, which mimics Mark's leadership on a 4 through 6. I thought that was a little bit of fun, kind of hinting at Omni-Man's selfishness versus Mark's willingness to go out and protect others. And Omni-Man can also reduce penetrating damage, similar to Mark. And then also, once per turn, when Omni-Man is dealt damage, heal him 1 click. This is protected from Pulse Wave. So if you do Pulse Wave him, then when he takes 1 damage from the Pulse Wave, he will then heal up 1 after that. Now, if this damage does kill Omni-Man, then it heals him 1. It is after resolutions, and also it's only once per turn. So you do kind of have to gang up on this guy. He will take you one-on-one, which I think fits Omni-Man quite well. For his actual dial, he's got a 10 hypersonic, which is good range, with a 12 attack. So with the rally card bonus, it goes up to a 13. For his defense, he has a 17 defense with impervious with the rally die that goes up to an 18, and a 4 damage exploit weakness. This is quite well statted. 10 move hypersonic, potentially 13 attack, 18 defense with an impervious rollout, and 4 damage exploit weakness. Now, as soon as you deal like 1 or 2 damage to him, his dial looks significantly weaker. Even 1 damage drops his damage down to 3 and makes him knock off of that hypersonic. So make sure you can actually deal some damage to Omni-Man before he starts healing up from his passive on the Pure-Blooded Viltrumite and knock him off of his quite actually honestly impressive top click. Then for the fun flavor text, for his hypersonic, we've got, look what they need to mimic a fraction of our power. There's so many iconic Omni-Man lines, it was honestly hard to kind of narrow them down. His charge is, Earth isn't yours to conquer. Again, another amazing line, especially looking back on the show, knowing what we know now from the end of the show, that line hits us completely differently. His flurry is called, you should have stayed dead. He says this to Mr. Immortal after he doesn't stay dead, and then he kills him again in front of everybody. His super strength ability is called, good, but try a little more like this. This is from the scene when he's training Mark, when he sucker punches the shit out of Mark and knocks the wind out of him all the way to hell. His quake is called Time for Some Training, Mark. I love my puns, and as we all know, Mark gets his full share of training. If you know what scene I'm referencing, I'm sure you're smiling along very smugly with me. His impervious is called Think, Mark, Think. His invulnerability is called This is the Only Way, Mark. His toughness is They can be a part of something bigger, ... and his combat reflexes is called Or Die. This is part of his final speech to Mark, trying to convince him to be a Viltrumite that ultimately does not work. Another fun little pun on his damage power here, if the exploit weakness is called I do love your mother, but she's more like a pet, which is a fun little exploit weakness on Mark's kind of vulnerabilities and sensitivities and of being a human. So I thought that was a fun little pun. And then his close combat expert is I didn't need them, they were weak. This is a conversation he's having with Cecil when Cecil is asking why he killed the Guardians of the Globe. They were his friends, but he didn't need them because they were weak, because he's a goddamn Viltrumite.
Next up, we have one of the most badass characters from the show that's not a hero. He's not a villain, but he is a villain. Titan, who, funny enough, I learned, does not have a name. He's still not named in the comics, almost 20 years after its original release. He does not have a name in the show. He's just Titan, which is funny, or Dad, because his daughter calls him Dad. His keywords, we just gave him the easy ones. He's a brute, he's a martial artist, he's clearly knows how to fight, and he's a ruler because he does take over Machine Head's job as the king of the city, basically. He's got his rally dice in all 3. He's a close combat expert. If you've watched the show, the amount of fight scenes that he has where he is just clear and calculated and knows how to fight, and the fact that he's bulletproof skin is really funny. But he uses that to his advantage and just goes in. So you can remove a rally dice from his card, and he may charge as free. His figure lacked move and attack. He charges almost like the Juggernaut in several scenes, and the fact that they didn't put it on there, that's a shame. We fixed that. If he has a rally dice, he gets +1 attack, +1 defense, so same as the others. Second trait is make the city better for a lot of people. He has Outwit because he tricked Mark into helping do the dirty work. It was a very clever ploy, and I liked it. He's got Mastermind but he may choose a friendly character within 3 squares in line of fire instead of adjacent to him. He's one of the smallest styles on here. He's only 50 points, but he doesn't have much of a reducer for his impenetrable skin, and we didn't think it would be balanced to give him anything better traded. So this just helps him stay alive a little bit longer and mitigate some of that damage. For his fun abilities, we've got Help Me Take Down My Boss. That message was for you. This is the scene where he is doing the payback for one gang being on his gang's turf, and he kills the boss and then has a kid shoot him in the face with a shotgun. Super Strength is my turn. When he's doing that fight scene, he runs into the building. They're shooting him. She's bouncing off of him. He casually walks over to a forklift and it goes, "It's my turn," and then throws the forklift at somebody. When he's walking through, there's a audio track behind him that's talking about him being like a king. I thought that was very fitting for him because he just kind of tanks all the damage, so I felt like that fit toughness perfectly. His willpower is paint costs money. You got a long ass name. When he spells Invincible and does it very poorly. That one was really funny. And then his outwit is I didn't borrow the money for me. And this is him convincing Invincible to help him using his family and like, hey man, I was down on my luck. I had to do what I had to do, and now I'm stuck with these people. If we do look at his dial, he's got super strength all the way down his attack because this dude is a house. He's strong. Leap climb on his first click. He is a very agile character. Does do a lot of moving and flowing through combat. And then toughness on his first 4, goes to willpower on click 5, and then he has that outwit towards the end. And he's got some flurry in there. Charge flurry towards the end is really good, but at that point he's very low. This is just a utility piece. He's going to stay around. As long as he stays on his top click, he'll be able to deal some damage. But once he gets down low, he isn't really good for much. But I really did like this character, and I think that we brought his figure up a little bit. I don't know how much.
Last up, we've got Angstrom Levy, who is not a character from the show. So this is a character from the comics. We had to do some research on it because we're not uber familiar with the comic Invincible, but we figured out some ways to maybe capture some of his things. So a quick download on this character. Angstrom Levy hates Mark. He hates Invincible. He hates everything that he stands for. Honestly, I don't really know why, but that's what we figured out. He figured out that he hates Mark. And Angstrom Levy can travel through all the different multiverses and grab the other Angstrom Levies, and he's a genius level scientist, and so he creates contraptions and grabs a bunch of evil Invincibles from other dimensions and releases them on the world, and it's a war of the marks. And so that's funny. So that's kind of what this character does. This character's dial is not amazing, so we gave him a decent amount of traits and a lot more utility, and made him a 75-point figure, barely dropping his points, where we dropped most of the other characters by a decent amount. So first up, we've got his keywords. He is a monster and he is a scientist. That's basically all we could go with for him. He's a genius level scientist, and that thing ain't human, so he's a monster. Next up, for his rally dice, we've got all attack rolls on the rally 3, and we've got the traded stealth in there. This is used to represent him hiding in the different multiverses whenever he's attacked throughout his kind of character arc training montage, I guess, in the comics. He traveled to all the other multiverses and combined all the other Angstrom Levies from all the other multiverses into himself. So he is the only Angstrom Levy. And so this can be used to represent himself hiding in other dimensions with that stealth. For a free action, he can remove a rally die and generate any bystander on this card. Bystanders on this card all have max 1 and are considered 10 points for all purposes. So this 10 points is useful for any underworld characters that you might want to put on your team, any masterminding down to somebody. Leadership roles can be useful for this, as well as your opponent does score 10 points anytime they kill one of these figures. Keep that in mind because these figures are good, but they're not crazy. You do get to pick which one you generate, and we'll get into those bystanders in just a little bit. Also, if he has the rally die on his card, he modifies his attack and his defense by +1. This does not realistically even bring him up to like actual modern metagame. He goes from a 9 to a 10, or from a 10 to an 11 on his dial, and his defenses are not great. They're all 16s or lower. So realistically, this bonus is like kind of a consolation prize. This is not mostly what you're running him on your team for. He's not an attacker. He summons marks, and the marks go kill people. That's what he does. So his next trait, Master of the Multiverse, as a free action, you can choose a team ability that isn't uncopyable. Angstrom Levy can use that team ability until you choose again. This can be any team ability in the entire game. This can be Guardians of the Globe because he does not start with it. And this can be any Marvel ability, this can be any DC ability, this can be any Star Trek ability, this can be any Halo ability, this can be any ability in the game that is not uncopyable. So something like Mystics or Cosmic or Quintessence, stuff like those abilities that are uncopyable, he cannot grab. This is to use him representing in the comics. At one point, he went through a bunch of different multiverses, including the Marvel and DC universe. So we decided to give him some team abilities from the other universes because we thought it was a little fun. Plus, honestly, he can use the help. Then for his last trait, we've got Obsessed with Revenge. So he's got traded Steel Energy. So if he does end up actually making attacks, he can kind of heal up. Not amazing. At the beginning of the game, you choose an opposing character as Levy's Mark. I'm gonna let that one sit there for a little bit because it is definitely a pun that he hates Mark Grayson, Invincible. So I had a little fun with that. This is the same wording as that one Wolverine from, I believe it is Empire, Fantastic Four Empire. Same wording as that, but the actual effect is slightly different. Angstrom Levy modifies his attack by +1 and his defense by +1 when targeting or being targeted by that character. So he's a little harder to hit by the one guy that he's obsessed with revenge for, and a little easier to hit. Although, like I said, his attack is not amazing, and he's mostly going to be summoning evil Invincibles. With that, remove the rally die trait. So looking at his actual dial, he's got, honestly, some reasonable numbers until you look past his movement. He's got 6 range, double targets. Not bad, honestly. Not amazing, but not awful. He's got a 12 move phasing teleport. That's pretty good. That's legit. But then he's got a 9 attack incapacitate, a 16 defense willpower, and a 1 attack perplex, followed up by a 1 attack outwit. He never goes above 1 damage, so he can't hit anybody with a reducer because he doesn't have penetrating damage, even a little bit. So he's got like kind of a weird willpower through mastermind thing, incapacitate only on the top dial, and even then he's not really hitting with it. So this was an interesting character to balance around, trying to capture that, summoning a bunch of evil marks from other dimensions, because that's what he's mostly known for in the comics, and working that into the dial that we were given. So, for his bystanders, we've got 4 bystanders here. All of them are templated almost exactly the same way. They all fly, as they're all invincible. They all have a 9 movement, a 10 attack, a 17 defense, and a 3 damage. So, almost all of them are the exact same. They all started with Charge, Super Strength, Invulnerable, and Empower. So they each take one of the abilities from this 4, and we kind of upgrade one of them to their quote-unquote next level. So the first one here has Hypersonic instead of Charge, so it has Hypersonic, Super Strength, Invulnerable, and Power. The next one, instead of Super Strength, has Quake, so he has Charge, Quake, Invulnerable, and Power. Then the next one has Invincible instead of Invulnerable. And then the last one has Close Combat Expert instead of Empower. So these all play very similarly, which I thought was important to kind of keep the complexity on this figure down, but also they each fit into their own niche, which I think is important for a figure that can summon multiple different bystanders. I didn't want them to be all super different from each other so that there was still a cohesiveness, especially since they're all supposed to be the same character, but they're all special and unique in their own special way. So they get a little upgrade power for each one of their things. Then for going for his flavor text for his abilities, we didn't have a show to draw quotes from, so none of these are as memorable as especially like the Omni-Man quotes, but his phasing teleport is called Travel Through the Multiverse. His incapacitate is called Take What You Care About Most, because he does steal Mark's entire family at one point. His willpower and his mastermind are kind of one whole quote. Willpower is only one in the multiverse, and his mastermind is because they are all me now. So this is him grabbing all the other Angstrom Levies and combining them all in himself, gaining their memories and their experiences for his own to use in his evil machinations. His perplex is evil in so many dimensions, which is actually a quote that we got from the comics, that somebody is talking about him, that he's evil in so many dimensions. It's kind of a little pun there. While he's evil in so many different ways, but also he's evil in so many different dimensions. It's a fun little pun, so I had to throw it in there for being me. And then his outwit is Make Them Hate Invincible. This is probably his most well-known quote, when he's sending all the evil Invincibles out to go do evil things and make them all hate Invincible.
The last piece in the set is a William Clockwell bystander token. This piece is garbage and a half by today's standard. He's a 5-point piece for an 8 movement, 7 attack, 0 range, 14 defense, 1 damage. You would never play this piece.
Even for 5 points, it's just not worth it. 7 attack is not hitting anything, and even if you do, 1 damage does nothing. 14 defense means he gets 1 shot by a random targeting somebody has. There's just no point playing this piece.
So we brought him up a little bit and gave him some powers. This is the figure that had the most reworks. We decided to give him a color on every ability. So we've got his flurry, because when he goes off on the guy that turns his boyfriend into a monster, he beats the living crap out of him. We gave him incapacitate just to make him a little bit more useful. He can be a lockdown piece. Willpower, because he's Will. And then in power, because he pep talks Invincible so many times in the show. He's a very supportive piece. So playing him with Mark and then carrying him around, he supports Mark and gives him that little bit of extra oomph. So this is our one piece that we did the most changes to. And I think they were all warranted. I think it's still 5 points. It's still good for that.
This was following along in the general design philosophy we had for these, where we didn't want to change any of the numbers on their dial. We generally didn't want to change the color on any of their dials either. We wanted to kind of leave their dials alone as much as we could, but with William, he's a bystander. We're not going to make him a card and give him traits, so that's even dumb. So really the only change we could make to this character was to add colors to his powers, and as well as Adam Eve's stop click at the end there, cheating just a little bit to give her a little more defensibility.
Overall, I'm really happy with how these turned out. This was our first attempt at doing a legacy card for some characters. We've done some other custom clicks in the past, and we haven't shown those off yet. But this is a very unique thing that we tried to do, and I really hope you guys do enjoy this. They're going to be in the description, free to download, just so that way you guys can also get these. And if you have any feedback, you can leave it in the comments below. We do read all of our comments and we respond to them. I do love all the comments that we are getting. So guys, that's it for today. We appreciate if you guys would like our videos. If you're not subscribed, go ahead and subscribe. You get notifications every time we put a video up every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. We try to do 3 videos a week. Make sure you guys have that good Heroclix content that we want to see ourselves. Until next time, guys, take it easy.